end of Mass, a bat started flying around.
This was broad daylight.
The minute I stepped outside of the church.
She's got rabies. It's death.
I said, Jeanna, you're gonna be okay. The Holy Spirit's watching over you.
I've had a long-standing relationship with the sea. Can't be far away from it. At the corner of my eye, I felt a shadow or something crunch down on both my arms. And I thought, this is it. I've been attacked by a shark and I am going to die. And I realized I want to say goodbye to my children and wife.
It was really a gorgeous day for September. It was sunny, skies were blue, it wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold.
Jeanna and I were at the 10 o'clock Mass at St. Patrick's Church. Pretty much Mass was going on as normal, and we had gone, just the two of us. Jeanna's just a blast to be around. She's all around a cool person. She's caring, especially towards animals. She'll see an animal in trouble, even if it's a turtle on the highway, she's got to stop and move it off to the grass. That's what makes her special.
Jeanna's our only daughter. Just extremely athletic. She was involved with everything. Very outgoing.
She's not quite a tomboy, but she's pretty tough.
A lot of it comes from my mom. I've learned a lot of stuff from her. It was towards the end of Mass, a bat started flying around.
People were getting scared. And a lot of people were pointing. Bats are not uncommon in Wisconsin. But this was broad daylight. And it was flying around inside a building. It really seemed like it wanted to get outside.
It started to get really close to people's heads. They were picking up their hats or their purses or whatever they could find to swing at the bat. And then it flew to the back of the church, kind of over my head. And an usher actually knocked it to the floor. Everyone just ignored it.
She kept looking back at it and looking back at it. I mean, it was just bothering Jeanna.
I turned to my mom, and I'm like, Mom, can I pick it up and take it outside? You know, church was getting out. I didn't want to get stepped on.
I just figured, oh, it's just another animal she's rescuing.
So I went back, and I looked at the bat. To me, it was really cute, you know, a furry little thing. It looked kind of like a mouse without the long tail. And I thought it was adorable. So I crouched down and picked it up. As soon as I picked it up, it started squealing. Like no sound I've ever heard before. I immediately started to rush out of the church. I didn't want to disturb the congregation. The minute I stepped outside of the church, it dug its left fang into my left index finger. I've never before or after had that kind of pain.
was the first Christmas that I'd ever had my parents and my family come to me. So I'd been shopping and preparing and making food. I'd feed my family, diving for abalone and rock lobster and doing a lot of spearfishing. Particularly my mom enjoys the rock lobster, and it would have been very nice for her.
Craig is totally in love with the sea. He is a water baby. He'll go out in the wildest storms, and he'll surf in conditions that are crazy. I've always said that every single one of my grey hairs is called Craig.
I've had a long-standing relationship with the sea. Can't be far away from it. There's fish in the sea and there's good waves, and it's got a lot of the ingredients that make my life good. I got all my gear together and got ready to go down to the beach. Said goodbye to my children, my wife.
On that day, Craig happened to bump into me. He said, "Are you keen to go for a dive?" I said, "Sure, absolutely." A lot of people dive regularly in Scarborough. If the conditions are good, or if people feel like they just want to go out somewhere, you usually see who's around, who wants to go out. When we got to the beach, it was clear that conditions weren't great. There was a little bit of a chop in the water. The visibility wasn't fantastic. We walked to the end of the point. I said to Craig, "I'm probably not going to go in today." And he seemed quite fine with that. He was quite happy to go in by himself.
Got into the water and I just lay on my back and just paddled slowly out, taking it all in. I went to the edge of the reef where the reef drops off, took a deep breath, and I just went straight down. To my surprise, I saw this lobster. I went and grabbed him. I was busy examining him and slowly just ascending towards the surface, and out the corner of my eye, I just felt a shadow or something above me. Looked up and I saw that there was a very large object above me. I thought it at first was a whale. They're not uncommon in the waters around Cape Town. I needed to get up to the surface to take a breath. As I got closer, I saw that it had these crooked teeth sticking out its lower jaw. I realized that I wasn't dealing with a whale, but with a shark. The monster white shark. So I've never seen something so big so close. The shark was damaged and had scars all over it. I came up to the surface and my first thought is that I need to get away. Looked around and this shark did a circle and then came back towards me. So I thought, well, I'll just keep swimming and start heading towards the shore. We were swimming parallel to each other with his pectoral fin just underneath my chest. I realized that I needed to not behave like an animal that was scared and trying to get away. Moved very slowly. The shark suddenly, flick of its tail seemed to just pull away from me and turned and disappeared. And my fear spiked. My heart raced out of control. I was looking around and wondering where he was going to come from, and I couldn't see any sign of him. Then I saw his fin coming straight towards my head. I just knew it was going to get me.
so mad at this point, so I grabbed the bat. I yanked it off my finger, and I chucked it as hard as I could.
She showed me her finger. She said, "Oh, the bat bit me." I just like, "Well, let me see it." And you could hardly see anything. There was like this little pinprick. I just said, "When we get home, we'll clean it out."
Jeanna came home with this little scratch that you couldn't really see. It wasn't even a paper cut.
We just cleaned the spot where it bit me with a little bit of peroxide, and that was it.
A week or so after Jeanna got bit, I said, "How's your finger doing?" And she just says, "Fine, I don't even see anything anymore." No swelling, it healed right up.
I completely forgot about it, except for, the story that I told my friends that I got bit by a bat in church. Who does that? And so I continued going to school and to volleyball practice.
She just kind of went on normally. I thought it was going to be fine.
About 3 weeks after the bite happened, I started to get really, really tired. And I was sick. I was so horribly sick. I could hardly walk without, falling asleep. But it was our last volleyball game of the season, and I really wanted to play in that. So I went to school, no matter how bad I was feeling. And then at the game that night, something wasn't right. When they threw the ball up for me to hit, I saw either 2 or 3, sometimes 4 balls. And I couldn't tell, which ball was really the ball and who was who. I couldn't see straight, and I knew that I couldn't play. I was so weak and tired. I ended up sitting on the bench for the whole game. All I really thought was, oh no, what's wrong with me?
I saw this fin bearing down on me. This shark was coming to get me. I tried to throw my arms up, crunched down on both of my arms, and then its body landed on my chest and just drove me backwards under the water.
No sitting daydreaming, it's just enjoying being out there in the sun. It dawned on me that I hadn't seen Craig for a while. I hadn't seen him come up since I'd made the decision not to go with him. I got this strange feeling. I went to the edge of the point where I could see better, because always you could see where a diver is by the top of his snorkel. And I didn't see Craig.
I found myself underwater, still with my arms trapped in the mouth of this big shark, and it appeared to be swimming with me slowly. And I thought, this is it. I'm being attacked by a shark and I am going to die. Everything seemed to be shutting down. I was going into a very dreamy state. It was getting black. It was only then that I had this vision of my son's face in my mind. And I realized I want to say goodbye to him and to my girls. It made me realize I actually needed to get out of this place I was in. And I shook the shark. I I started kneeing him in his belly, so hitting him with my mask on his nose, and I started pulling with my right arm as hard as I could. I knew that I was underwater and knew that I was going to die, and I just tore it out.
I was tired, I had double vision, I had the tingling in my left arm. So I sat on the bench the whole game.
Something's not right because Jeanna was just extremely athletic, never sick. Even if she had a cold or something, she played through it. She was tough.
This is just too weird. There's got to be something wrong with her. I called her pediatrician, and he couldn't figure out what it would be. He said, I'm actually going to send her to the neurologist. I think there's more going on here. So that same day, we went down to the neurologist. He wanted to test her for meningitis and West Nile. Then he just said, once you're done with all the tests, you can go home. I'd like to see you on Monday, and then I'll have all the results of the tests. So we went home. We had supper. She ate fine. She went to bed right away.
Homecoming was the next day. I woke up and I was even more sick. It was like a really horrible flu where you don't feel like getting up, you don't feel like waking up.
I went in to wake her up for the homecoming parade. And she just said, oh, Mom, I don't feel good. I don't think I can go. She didn't even want to get out of bed. I started getting worried. I didn't know what was going on. I said, I can't wait till Monday. About 4 o'clock, I took her into the ER. And we saw the neurologist again. He said the tests that they have gotten back from the day before all came back negative. I think he was as puzzled as I was. It's just like, what is going on here? I don't know, we were sitting there talking to him, just going through stuff, and then all of a sudden Jeanna turned to me and she says, Mom, what about the bat? And he's right away, well, when did that happen?
And his face turned white, and he rushed out of there.
Came back maybe 10 minutes later, and he said, Children's Hospital is on their way. I think this is more serious than we can handle here. All of a sudden, there's all these people coming in, and they have these masks on with these shields. And they had on protective gloves and clothing. Why is this happening? What's going on?
Immediately, I just sank. I had this heavy lead belt on, so I found myself stuck on the seabed. Just getting clouded out with blood. I had realized that my thumb had been amputated. All I saw was this bony end here, but there was about a half-inch left of the base of my thumb. I knew I had to get my belt off fast, so I was feeling around. Finally, I just pushed it up. And that was about the most pain I felt. And the belt fell away, and I just floated up to the surface. My body just pumped water out. I couldn't see any sign of the shock. I was still bleeding profusely, and I just thought, this is a perfect time for him to come and get me. Any moment, I can just feel another bite. So I was rolled onto my back and started swimming to just try and get out as quickly as I can, because I knew that I didn't have very long to live. my whole picture's getting extremely grainy. Time seems to be shifting and I'm almost hallucinating and the picture's crackling and my whole vision is actually closing in.
I started to peer intently out to see if I could see where Craig was. I just knew that something had gone wrong. I saw someone swimming back slowly towards the shore. As they got closer, I realized it was Craig. He had his back to me. He didn't seem to have his mask on. He raised one of his arms up, and I realized that I couldn't see his hand.
I was trying to keep Jeanna calm and tell her they're going to figure out what's wrong with you. With all these people coming in and they have these masks on, I didn't want her scared.
I was so tired and so sick that I was pretty much out of it.
I had called John and told him what was going on, that they were coming to get her right away. And I actually rode down in the ambulance with Jeanna.
We got down to Children's Hospital. That's when things started to change.
She was taken to an isolation room. It was getting quite scary.
I had just gotten there when we had Jeanna come in. We were moving fast and furious and having no idea where we're going. So it was literally, what are we going to do in the next hour or two? She was getting so sick so fast. She was becoming paralyzed. She had to have a breathing tube inserted. It was profoundly scary for them and equally scary for me.
And, you know, nobody is giving us any answers. It's just getting real frustrating. You know, why can't they figure out what's wrong with her?
Finally, myself and Ann got called into a room, and it was a room full of doctors. There was a lot of them.
The looks on their faces, you knew that it wasn't going to be good.
They basically said, we have some bad news. She's got rabies.
John said, well, that's good, then she can get the shots.
And they said, no, there is no cure for rabies. It doesn't work that way.
Well, we said, so what can we do? And they said, there's nothing you can do. You can basically take her home and let her die, or we can put her in a dark room and let her die. And that's when John broke down.
We lost it. That was it. Heart just fell right out of your body. That's the bottom. Because we knew what was going to happen. There was no cure. We had no options. It's death.
He had got quite close to shore when I saw that he raised one of his arms up, and I realized that I couldn't see his hand.
And then I see the marks on the shore, and I start calling him to come and help me. And he's looking at me as if he's in shock.
I didn't know what to do. I screamed at two surfers that were walking past to come and help, that there was an emergency here.
I knew that every breath was going to count here and every drop of blood was counting, because I just knew that I had lost so much blood that my body was shutting down fast. I I'm conscious I now need to get this last hurdle, which is over the rocks and over the kelp and weed and onto dry land. And there's a big swell coming around the corner, and I hold my breath as I usually would for the wave to go over me, and I'm conscious that as the wave hits me that I don't have the ability to hold my breath anymore because I have no more blood left in me. Now what's happening is I start getting drowned, because as each wave goes over me, I just suck in lots of water because I can't keep my mouth shut. When the waves come, I try and drink my way through them and get rid of the water. I was terrified that I wasn't going to make it. I just concentrated on seeing my children. I see a wave, just this wall of white water coming at me, and I realized it was my last chance. As it hit me, I just dived, and I body surfed on my back.
It looked pretty gruesome. He had 4 or 5 deep lacerations across both forearms, and there was a large gash across his left hand. His right hand was completely severed. It was being held on by a few tendons. The next immediate priority was to get help, because I knew that we didn't actually have that much time. I probably stopped 20 different people looking for a cell phone. I was screaming at everyone I came across, "There's been a shark attack. Someone's been injured." I was really out of breath, and my heart was racing. Just being gobsmacked that no one had a cell phone on them. I knew he was strong, but I don't think he could have lasted much longer.
I was mad. Well, how can this happen? You know, why did I let this happen? I was crying and breaking down. And Dr. Willoughby said, well, there is something I'd like to try.
I was thinking about doing something different because all the conventional things had never worked in rabies.
And he said, I'd like to put her in a coma to shut down her brain so it won't get to her brain, and just let her immune system work and see if it can fight off the rabies.
This never tried before, never done even in animals. But with 100% fatal disease and with nothing else sort of out there that had even suggested working, we thought it was reasonable to give this a shot.
Me and Ann looked at each other, and we said, if there's anything you can do, even if it helps the next people out, you need to do it.
She was gonna die if we didn't do anything. We have to try something. We can't just not try. We can't let her die.
And we then got to work.
There was a specialist for every part of Jeanna's body. Everybody was working on something to keep her going. She had more IV tubes and tubes in her than I've ever seen in anybody.
So we didn't actually even get to tell Jeanna what was going on. We didn't get to say goodbye. I mean, we still always talked to her. We played music for her. I told her I loved her a lot. Told her about all the people praying for her.
You could see her body just get thinner and smaller and lighter. Watching her lose weight, it was tough. It was tough to see her, you know, kind of wither away. And for me, a father, to watch your kid going through that, I actually had to leave the room. I couldn't take it anymore.
She was sleeping, and I had just laid down on the cot they brought in for me. I closed my eyes, and I saw a vision of a dove. It was like descending, you know, outstretched wings, and it was descending down. That's when I knew she was going to be okay. So I sat up in bed and I said, Jeanna, you're going to be okay. The Holy Spirit's watching over you. I knew she was going to be okay. They started bringing her out maybe after a week and a half.
I can remember telling everybody in the room that every disease has a cure. Somebody has to be the first, and Jeanna's going to be the first one. And from that point in time, that's all we believed, is she was going to be able to be the first one to beat this.
And then when we tapered off the sedation, her EEG went back to normal and her pupils went back to normal. But she didn't do anything. She just was like she was a complete vegetable.
She basically was just not there other than her body.
Amazingly, no one had a cell phone on them. I remember asking and asking and asking. Eventually, this Dutch tourist said, absolutely, please use my phone. After I'd made a couple of calls, I ran back to Craig to see how he was doing. He was still breathing shallowly, but fairly strongly. He was pale. He wasn't saying much at all. So I was really worried about keeping him alive.
We were in the garden. My husband was barbecuing, and then the phone rang. And I answered it, and this voice said, I'm Mark, I'm a friend of Craig's. He said, Craig's been attacked by a shark. I walked around the garden trying to control myself. It was all a bit of a daze. All I could think about was, is he alive and is he going to live?
Huddling around Craig, a lot of things are going through your mind, you know. Is the cavalry going to arrive in time? There's only so much we can do here with the small bits of equipment that we had. And then actually hearing the chopper come over the hill and across the bay towards Craig. That was one of the most wonderful sounds of my life.
We arrived at the hospital, and that was one of my hardest moments of keeping composed, because his arms were covered with dressings, but the blood was just dripping continuously. And because he'd lost so much blood, he was grey. And as I looked at him, I thought, he's not going to make it. I didn't think that he could ever live through that. And he was looking straight at me, and I was trying to think all the time of, don't let Craig see how you feel, don't let Craig see how you feel. So when he looked up at me, I just said, Happy Christmas, Craig. I could see that Craig was absolutely terrified. had to clean the wounds and suture them and mend the broken bones and reattach his thumb. He'd lost so much blood. And besides losing the blood, the shock of a shark attack must be hideous. And I just felt that the longer they took, the worse the news was going to be. And as the hours went past, you know, there's less likely of him living, there's less chance. And we just had to wait. And that, I'm sure, is the hardest thing I've ever had to do, is to just wait and find out. About 5 in the morning, the doctor said he's okay, he's gonna make it. He still looked a very bad color because of all the blood loss, but he was alive. And that was the best Christmas present any of us have ever had.
When I woke up in intensive care, and then I saw my parents for the first time, I felt really sorry for what I'd done to them. Completely freaked them out, you know. It's a hell of a thing for your child almost to die and to get bitten by a shark. My children and wife came and bought me my Christmas presents, although I couldn't open them. One of the enduring moments is clamping eyes on them again. It's really good to feel them and see them and hear them. Grateful every day I see them.
Craig is amazing the way he has learned to cope with his disability. He couldn't wait to go diving again, much to his mother's horror. I think he knew all those stories about if you fall off a horse, you've got to get back pretty quickly.
I think Craig's one of the most remarkable people I know. He has a real serious depth of strength within him. And I think that's one of the key things that allowed him to survive.
I am determined to try and get strong and try and have a full life and do as much as I can. I still can't turn the key in a lock or brush my teeth, but I can write. Looking back at this experience, I can see how it has helped me really appreciate how important it is to have family, how valuable my children are to me, and also what they can get you through when you really need them. They got me to get out of that sea and get out of that shark's mouth and be here, and particularly be here for them.
She wasn't moving, she wasn't responding to pain. She was just like she was totally locked in. I was really concerned she was going to be locked in forever. That was probably the worst day of my life.
I believe Jeanna was in there, and she was going to come out. We felt like we got her this far. And from that point in time, we weren't going to let go. We weren't going to give up.
She wouldn't open her eyes, so you didn't know if she was awake or not. I'm like, Jeanna, this is Mom. Come on, can you wake up? And open your eyes, and she just wouldn't do it. Finally, Dr. Willoughby came in there one day, and he said, you know, she might just be too weak. So he actually took his finger and thumb and opened her eyes, and he says to me, tell her to look at you. And I'm like, Jeanna, look over here. Well, that was the first time that we knew she was there.
It started out with a wink of the eye, and then she moved her finger, and that was huge. Then all of a sudden there's hope. There's something to grab onto.
Every day she was doing something. She was coming back faster than anybody I've ever seen. Never seen anything like it. The fact that someone who didn't get the vaccine ahead of time would be able to survive and clear the virus. And so she was the world's first in that regard.
We were extremely lucky. We got a second chance at life with her.
Most people see their kids be born once. And we've seen her baby born twice. So, very lucky.
I love my mom and my dad because they didn't give up on me. My family probably means everything. I mean, no, they were there for me throughout the entire thing, and there's no way they could be replaced.
Today, Jeanna is pretty much the same girl she was before all this happened. She obviously can't do the sports anymore, but she got involved in other things. And she's going into animal field. You know, she still wants to work with animals.
I definitely feel like I have a second chance at life. I'm going into my senior year of college. I'm majoring in biology. I want to work with animals. And I'm going to keep rabies awareness out there and save as many people as I can.